Last week, Bill Gates went on record stating that 100% of rich nations should switch to synthetic beef. This led to outcry by some folks on the right who despise anything vegan related.
He wants to take away your beef.
And celebration by vegans and vegan media who held up Bill Gates as some sort of hero that is going to do absolutely amazing things for the vegan movement and the animals. This is deeply problematic though, and I'm going to tell you today exactly why Bill Gates is not an ally for the animals, for the planet, or for veganism, or really anyone that we should be celebrating and elevating in any way. Now, before you get all, ooh, conspiracy theory against Bill Gates, no, this isn't going to be anything like that. This is simply going to be the facts about what Bill Gates actually stands for and invests in when it comes to food, agriculture, and how he is actually actively undermining veganism with much of his philanthropy. First of all, Bill Gates himself is not vegan. If you've watched some of my previous videos on this topic, you'll know that I am no fan of hero worship or excessively putting celebrities, plant-based or vegan influencers on pedestals. However, to put someone on a pedestal who has every privilege and ability in the world to go vegan and speaks about and knows about the science and impact that raising animals has on the environment and climate change, yet still openly eats meat, just seems like we're taking this hero worship thing to a whole new level. Now, I get that it's exciting when someone with Bill Gates' platform and level of influence speaks out about the need to shift away from animal products to plant-based alternatives. But doesn't it kind of undermine the message when he himself is still eating animal products and also blogs and speaks about how he would bet on and raise chickens and thinks that meat and dairy are necessary to feed people and we can't expect the whole world to go vegan?
Our goal here is to take West Africa, where right now only 5% of the households have chickens, and get that up country by country up to about 30%.
Bill Gates also isn't the great philanthropist that you probably think he is. Even while he's given away over $50 billion to charity, his wealth has actually grown significantly over that same time period, including by $20 billion just during the pandemic alone. And some of the philanthropy that Gates and the Gates Foundation does are really just giving to multinational private for-profit corporations that the Gates Foundation also has investments in. An investigative report in The Nation found that the Gates Foundation has given over $2 billion in tax-deductible donations to for-profit corporations that the Gates Foundation held investments in. So he's kind of giving to himself and other wealthy people and getting tax deductions for doing so. The truth is, Bill Gates is really just brilliant at PR and greenwashing everything that he does. Have you ever noticed how there's an incredible, endless amount of positive news coverage of his work, and that there are hardly ever, if any, pieces in mainstream media that are critical of him or his foundation's approach to solving problems? Well, it just so happens that he is also giving millions of dollars every year to journalistic and media entities such as NPR, the New York Times, and The Guardian, often to report on programs and efforts in agriculture and poverty that his foundation is directly working in, which results in a very interesting conflict of interest. The Columbia Journalism Review summed it up in their brilliant, extensive investigative piece. In the same way that the news media has given Gates an outsized voice in the pandemic, the foundation has long used its charitable giving to shape public discourse on everything from global health to education to agriculture. Bill Gates also uses his philanthropy to zealously promote an agenda of deregulation and free market capitalism and technological solutions. This includes things such as genetically engineering cows that will produce fewer methane emissions and more meat and dairy per single cow, or shooting particles into the sky to block or dim the sun to prevent climate change. And he does all of this rather than focusing on literally any of the root problems of climate change, of income inequality, of poverty, of animal agriculture, which should come as no surprise, since tackling these root issues would mean tackling the very systems that benefits Gates and that he continues and has gained his wealth and power through. An article in The Nation laid out this type of conflict so clearly in their reporting where they show just how much Gates personally emits when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions from his private jet, his 23-car private garage, and his several multi-million-dollar mansions, as well as the fact that he and his foundation are still invested in and continuing to make profits off of fossil fuel companies, all while he goes around claiming to be a huge champion for the climate and taking action on climate change. And sadly, when it comes to veganism, the story is no different. Bill Gates is going around telling everyone that we need to switch to eating synthetic meat and speaking about how damaging beef in particular can be for climate change. But at the same time that he's saying and doing all of this over here, on the other hand, he is actively funding, investing in, and supporting animal agriculture. So I did just a quick search, really like a very quick search of the Gates Foundation public grants on the foundation's website. And just in the past 2 years that I was quickly able to pull up from 2018 through 2020, the Gates Foundation has given over $100 million directly to livestock and animal agriculture industry groups. This includes things like $1.3 million to Heifer International. Check out my video on why I don't support Heifer International here. $17 million to the International Livestock Research Institute to support investment and development of livestock globally, $8.9 million to Hendrix Genetics to promote the development and genomic breeding of superior breeds of chickens to increase poultry production, $1.5 million to the EcoHealth Alliance specifically to support the Indian Ministry of Animal Husbandry and Dairying, and $12.5 million to the International Center for Living Aquatic Resource Management to increase productivity and development of aquaculture systems, which for those of you who don't know, that means AKA toxic, harmful fish farms. And honestly, this list just goes on and on and on. This is just a fraction of the grants that I was quickly able to find. Not to mention that the Gates Foundation has regularly partnered with some of the worst food companies and most environmentally destructive corporations on the planet to promote things like industrial agriculture, monocrops of GMOs, and toxic pesticides. In January of 2020, the Gates Foundation launched a new initiative called Gates Ag 1 that is a subsidiary of the Gates Foundation, and Gates Ag 1 has a stated mission to empower smallholder farmers with affordable, high-quality tools, technologies, and resources they need to lift themselves out of poverty. However, as good as that may sound, the problem is the president of Gates Ag 1 is Joe Cornelius. And Joe Cornelius was previously the director of food, agriculture, and nutrition at Bayer Crop Science for 13 years, and before that, he also worked a stint at Monsanto as well as Pfizer. So I don't really care how you spin this or what words you put on empowering small farm holders. The person in charge of this has worked with and probably supports the agenda of some of the largest food and chemical companies on the planet who are industrial agriculture. So how likely do you think it is that someone like Joe Cornelius, being the president of Gates Ag 1, is going to do anything to actually promote vegan, organic, and regenerative and sustainable farming practices with this new initiative? So sure, we can celebrate the fact that Bill Gates publicly stated that rich nations should switch to eating 100% synthetic beef. But you know what would do a hell of a lot more good for the people, for the animals, for the planet, and for spreading veganism? If Bill Gates actually stopped actively investing in and spending hundreds of millions of dollars to prop up and grow the animal agriculture industry and further consolidate power and wealth with some of the worst food and agriculture corporations on the planet. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. That really helps me out and means a lot to me. And if you'd like to support me, hit that subscribe button below, share this video wherever you can. And for more information and to learn about the problems with Heifer International and why veganism is always the more sustainable option, check out these two videos here, and I will see you next week in another video.